Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of STEM Girls Virtual. My name is Emily, and I'm here on behalf of Cincinnati Museum Center. On this show, we talk about different careers in the STEM fields, those fields being science, technology, engineering, and math. Today, we have CJ Johnson with us, who is an animal trainer and animal lover. CJ, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So, CJ, based off of some conversations we've had, you've had a few different careers in the STEM fields, which we're going to cover in this interview, but have you always been interested in STEM?
Oh, definitely. From a very young age. I was fortunate enough to have a mother that has a degree in chemistry. And so she would explain to us different chemical reactions and properties. We would even watch like any shuttle launch or anything like that. We'd watch it together as a family. It was a very scientific household to grow up in.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Yeah, big celebration when there's the shuttle launch. That's neat. So CJ, you studied psychology and zoology at The Ohio State University, and you've tended to always have jobs working with animals. What about animals made you want to work with them?
Well, okay, so my grandfather was a vet, and my father was raised on a farm. So I grew up with a house full of animals, and I just loved them from a very young age. And my family kind of wanted me to become a vet as well. But I was more interested in the behavior aspect of animals. I was like, you know, why is it that when the cat wags its tail, it's different from when a dog wags its tail? So I was just always curious about, you know, why is that? Why do these certain behaviors happen sometimes? And I toyed with becoming maybe like an art teacher or something my first year of college, but I realized very quickly that I was not going to be happy unless I was working with animals. You have to do something that you're passionate about.
Oh, for sure. And I always say that I wish my cats could talk because I'd love to know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So I totally get the interest behind kind of like how an animal thinks and how they behave. And so that's really neat. And so you've had a few different jobs in the STEM field. Can you kind of give us an overview? And we'll get into some specifics later on, but I'd like to just kind of hear your journey in STEM.
Oh, yeah. There's many different things you can do in the STEM field. And like I said, I kind of wanted to focus on animals. So I've been a scuba diver, an animal trainer, a live animal show presenter. I've worked at a wildlife center where that was rehab and rehabilitation. I've even done like putting together frames, which didn't really have much to do with animals, but at the time I was able to use like math a lot to make sure everything fit together perfectly in the frame. So, I mean, you can go from all these different kinds of careers, but still be using the STEM field.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you learn skills with each job. So I'm guessing that of the jobs you've had, you've built up some of those skills. Can you kind of talk about some of the skills you use in these
definitely.
jobs?
Definitely. I would say one of the main skills is actually having self-confidence. You have to be confident. If you're working with an animal or holding an animal, you have to be confident that you know how that animal is going to react. And you have to be able to talk in front of a crowd sometimes for some of these jobs you do. But you're definitely going to have to work with other people. So you have to have very good listening skills. You have to be aware of your surroundings. And you have to have people skills, and those skills will never, ever fail you. You will always need those.
No, yeah, I think most jobs that you have to have some sort of customer service or people skills, regardless of what it is, because that's what the job is. You know, right. I've worked customer service, and it's really aided me in my career at the museum. So I'm sure others would agree. So yeah, those people and communication skills are really important no matter what you do. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot because I didn't have a question planned about your rehab work, but can you talk about a little bit about the rehabilitation work you did and what kind of animals you were working with and where you did this?
So the rehabilitation was fascinating. My first job was giving physical therapy to a duck.
Okay.
Right. I mean, that's different. But you know, when these animals are re-released into the wild, that is just a feeling that you can't reproduce. To know that you had something to do with them succeeding, that's just amazing. We also had an education department. You had to work in the clinic for a year before you were allowed to do the education department. So I did that. I worked in the clinic for 2 years, and I did the education department for 2 years. And those were animals that could not be re-released. Maybe they were missing a wing or a leg or some other blind.
Right.
Yeah, lots of animals get injured and can't be re-released. But we use them for educational purposes, and we could take them to libraries for, Girl Scouts or whatever activity was going on. Nursing homes, a lot of times, schools. So we take these animals in and talk about, getting everyone's attention when you're holding up an owl, that was injured because it flew into a power line or was hit by a car or something. You have everyone's attention, and they are listening and they are learning, and it's fantastic.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of the animals you worked with are some that people might come across in their daily lives. So knowing what's the right thing to do if I see an injured animal, should I approach, things like that. That's important for kids, especially to learn, because they're the ones that are outside a lot.
Oh yeah. And we had a lot of kids, that would go get their parents and say, hey, I found this sick animal, and they didn't touch it. They went and got an adult, and then they called us, and we were like, you did the right thing, good job. So yeah, that was always a plus too, to let the kids know they did the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that empowers kids and hopefully teaches them to respect animals. So I think it's pretty important for a kid, if you're able to have a pet growing up, because it teaches you this level of empathy that
definitely
you might not otherwise get. So yeah, that's amazing. The rehab work sounds like it was really impactful.
It was, definitely.
Yeah. So you talked about being a scuba diver. Can you talk about, you're in Australia doing this, and you were a certified rescue diver as well. Can you kind of tell us how this came to be and what that job was like?
Right. So during my internship, I was working in Hawaii. I was working with dolphins and sea lions. And in order to become a dolphin trainer, you have to be scuba certified. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get my scuba certification. My internship ended. I went back to Ohio briefly. I did my classes and my pool dives in Ohio. But I wasn't going to do an open water dive in Ohio in the wintertime. So I actually went to Australia, was to stay with some friends. And I got my scuba certification there. And then after I got certified, we went to the Great Barrier Reef. And my first certified dive was the Great Barrier Reef. And everywhere you look, it was like something out of Jim Henson's Creature Shop. It was absolutely amazing. So once I went to North Carolina to accept a position there, their dive team, you had to be rescue certified. So since I had my open water, the company actually paid for me to go ahead and get my rescue certification. Okay. So that was absolutely fantastic that I didn't even have to pay for it. And that's something that I get to keep forever. I will always be a rescue diver. So that was just something fantastic that I got to do.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of jobs out there that if you need additional training or things like that, a lot of times they'll be able to work with you like they did with you. Maybe it's free, or getting a degree. I've had friends who needed to get an MBA and their company paid for it because they wanted to keep them as an employee. So there's a lot where companies are willing to help you and work with you.
Definitely,
training.
As soon as they heard that I wanted to be on the dive team, they're like, "Oh, well, we can certify you rescue. That's fine." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, because you're helping them out too. Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. Do you have the Great Barrier Reef sounds like it was a great, memorable dive. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Great Barrier, like why you were down there? Because it's changing, down there. So it's probably very different than when you were down there.
Right. Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was like 2005. So that was like 15 years ago that I was down there. So in Hawaii during my internship, I met some people from Australia and we became friends. And I knew I needed to get my certification, my scuba certification. I had to do these dives and I didn't want to wait until summertime. So they were like, you can come here, stay with us. We'll go diving. So I was like, perfect. And yeah, it was absolutely crazy. We got to go to these islands called the Whitsundays. And the beaches there are 98% silica. It's like powder. And I mean, white, and shiny, kind of like, it was just like, are you kidding me? But the only way you can get there is by boat. You can't drive there. And it was just this completely wild paradise. It wasn't very big, you know, these islands, but it was good enough that we could land, and they let us get out onto this island. And I was just running around in the sand, having a great time. And then we went out a little further, and we were on the soft coral. So we were not in the middle of the barrier reef. Of course, you don't want to damage it. So we were just on the outside of it, but there's more, it's brighter, it's softer. So it's kind of moving along with the water. But yeah, many fish. I mean, so many fish. I do have a couple photos.
Yeah.
But I had like one of those underwater cameras, but it was like a one-time use thing. So I was only able to take a couple photos, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I got a few, and it was great. For some reason, the visibility, or what we typically say viz, just for short, the viz was fantastic. You could see quite a while, and everybody was talking about how they'd never seen it that clear before. Like had never been such a good viz, and they were kind of worried because I guess the storm had come in earlier, but apparently it cleared right up. So.
Okay. Yeah, it cleared it a lot up, it sounds like. No, that is such a memorable experience to have had, and your interest in STEM led you to do that, and it aided you in your career later on. So that's really neat that, you know, all of these different interests were able to come together and assist you later on, and to create a lasting memory at the same time. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I would not want to go. I would not want to go scuba diving in the Ohio River in the winter or wherever you need to do it. So I don't blame you.
Right. A little too cold. I don't do cold water.
Yeah, no, that would not be enjoyable.
Yeah, and in Australia, the water was very, very warm, but because of the jellyfish, especially even the box jellyfish, even when they're babies, when they're like this big, they can really, really hurt you. So we had to wear wetsuits just to protect our skin.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Finding Nemo taught me that you do not want to get stung by a jellyfish. So
I have been stung by a jellyfish. You don't want that to happen.
No. So you also worked at the Knoxville Zoo and the Ripley's Aquarium of the Smokies. So what were your roles with those institutions?
So the main theme, I think, other than animals in my life, has been education. It is just so fascinating to be able to take someone who doesn't know something, and then they learn something, and it's just like the look on their face when they learn something. You're just like, I did something today. I taught somebody something. So I worked in the education department, and I got to help with the bird show. I did animal encounter shows. These were shows that I wrote myself. So that was kind of nice to be able to write my own shows and be able to perform them. I also did things like help out at the butterfly exhibit, or sometimes I would hang out at over by the rhinos, and I'd have like a rhino horn people could touch, or I'd work over by the elephants and I'd have like a leg bone, and I'd always ask the little kids to try to pick it up, and of course they couldn't because it was huge. But just lots of very fun experience letting people, you know, touch at least some sort of educational artifact that we had. So it was great that it was a variety of things. I got to do a whole bunch of different things. Ripley's Aquarium, again, I was in the education department, but I was also a scuba diver. So it was a very physically demanding job. Every hour on the hour we had a dive show. So I was either narrating or in the water. But because I got to spend so much time in the water, I developed real relationships with a lot of these animals. And I even started training the stingrays while I was in the water. I mean, why not? Let's see if we can do this. And it worked. And I took a video of what I was doing, and I was able to present that to IMATA. That's the International Marine Animal Trainers Association. And I won a second place behavioral award that year. So that was 2009. So that was absolutely fantastic. That's one of the coolest things I've ever been able to do.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And something that on this show I don't talk about as much, but maybe should, is that STEM education is really important. And there's a lot of jobs in the STEM field where you're educating others. So if you really like working with people or you really like working with kids, but maybe you don't want to be a traditional teacher, STEM education is something that is continually growing as a way to teach STEM in really engaging ways. So it's really awesome that you got to do STEM education in a lot of different places in your career so far.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it also sounds like you had a lot of variety in your day-to-day job, which for a lot of people might be something they're looking for. They might not want a traditional desk job. They might want to be out in the field, so to speak, or they want their every day to be slightly different. And it sounds like your experiences were kind of like that. So
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that, you know, that just makes it more fun.
Yes.
When you get to kind of change it up. Sometimes you're not doing the exact same thing every day.
Yeah.
But that's me.
No, and I think for me in particular, before I kind of thought, oh, I'll have a desk job, and now I get to interview people like you for my job and things, and that's really neat because you get to learn about a lot of new fields. So that, yeah, I think having a variety in your job, if you're really interested in that, it's important to find something that you'd like to do that. So yeah. And you also work as an animal trainer. So
yep.
Can you, and you've trained stingrays, can you kind of tell us the work involved and why would people seek out an animal trainer?
Right. So, wow. Training animals is basically you're just using positive reinforcement. That's what I use. That's what most trainers use, is positive reinforcement. And that increases the probability that a behavior will occur. If you pair that with a cue, it could be saying sit to your dog. That could be the cue, right? Or it could be some sort of hand gesture. So give them a cue, they elicit the behavior, when they're prompted. And then you can use your creativity to come up with some sort of show. It could be educational. It could just be fun. Commercials, television shows, movies. I thought maybe for a while I might want to work on the set of a movie and train the animals. But I really, really liked the education. It really hit me. When somebody would say something to me like, I learned that last time, and I'd go, wow, that's great. I taught somebody something and they remembered it. So that was where I found the most joy. So that's what I decided to go after. But okay, so being an animal trainer, you definitely have to be a problem solver because not all animals are going to learn the same way. And you have to be able to see things from the animal's point of view. I had an issue with a cat once that wasn't using the litter box. And finally I'm like, well, this was a Maine Coon cat. He was like 20 pounds, much bigger than a typical cat. And I thought maybe this standard litter box isn't big enough for him. So I got him a bigger box. What do you know? He instantly started using the litter box. So sometimes you just have to try to see it from their point of view, just to see what's going on. So it can be fantastic. It can be amazing to have this, just, you can see the light bulb go on sometimes in their little minds too. And that's also very gratifying and fantastic. I love it when an animal is trying, like, you want me to do this? You want me to do this? Like they'll try all these different things. And you're like, oh, they're trying so hard. And that's just fantastic to have that relationship with an animal. But yeah, I mean, in some facilities, you'll be in charge of husbandry, and some facilities you won't. So just find out what you like and where you think you might want to work.
Yeah, and a lot of different animals can be trained. I think when people sometimes think of animal trainer, they think zookeeper or they think dog trainer. But it sounds like in between that, you just trained a cat. So it sounds like almost any animal could probably, I'm going to go out on a limb and say almost all animals could be trained in some capacity. So
yeah, so here's the criteria. An animal has to be aware of its behavior in order to train it. Like a starfish, they just react. They don't have a thought process. So you can't really train a starfish. I mean, if you touched it, it would probably start crawling a certain direction. So, and that way you could train it, but not really, because it's not really thinking. But goats, for instance, they have no idea when they go to the bathroom. They just kind of go. So you can't potty train a goat.
Okay.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can train a goat to do other things, but you can't potty train them.
Okay, good to know if I ever get a pet goat. Yeah. Is there a particular type of animal you really enjoy working with?
I mean, I think my stingrays will always be very special to me because that was something I was able to accomplish there, and I do miss my stingrays. But typically when people ask me like, what's your favorite animal or something like that,
Yeah,
I'm like,
let's ask that. What's your favorite animal?
the one I'm working with at the time.
Okay.
I just, you know, it's so hard to pick a favorite. I do like some of the outliers. Like I like capybaras, the largest member of the rodent family. They're like the size of a bear, but they're a rodent. Like that's
Yeah,
interesting.
they're really big.
Right. Okapis kind of look like a cross between a camel, a zebra, and some sort of deer. It's just so weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to work with them. But yeah, every animal is special.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I was not a cat person until my husband brought a cat into our relationship, and then I was like, oh, I like cats. Like, who
Yeah.
knew? So now we have two. You know. No, that's great. And do you have any particular memorable stories that you could tell us? Maybe a couple that stand out.
Oh my
Your
gosh.
time working with animals.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got funny stories. I've got heartfelt stories. So
Sure, this is your interview. You tell what you.
Right. When I first became a dog trainer, my very first client came in, and this dog had been in a hoarding situation. So this dog had never seen sun, had never seen the grass, and was about half the size he should have been. He was a mastiff, but he was like the size of a golden retriever. And he was terrified. He was just shaking. His tail was tucked. He ducked his head. I mean, he was just absolutely terrified. So I had heard about this product that is for anxiety. And it uses compression therapy, and they make compression therapy vests for humans. I don't know if you've ever heard, if you have a panic attack, you're supposed to push down on your own chest because that pressure takes the anxiety away. So this vest it just fits really snug, right? So it just takes away that anxiety. So we got this compression vest on the dog, and it's not supposed to work like super fast, but within 20 minutes, this dog was no longer shaking. He didn't have his tail tucked, and he was just kind of looking around like, okay, I don't know what this is. I've never seen any of this before. And then I kept working with him for a few weeks, and like the second week, he just walked up to me and he put his head in my lap. And it was like he was thanking me, you know. It was just, it was very, very sweet. And I was like, okay, this is fantastic. Not only did I help these people with their new dog, I helped this dog.
Yeah.
And I used science. You know, this compression vest, this really helped him not feel quite so scared. So very, very good success there.
Oh, good.
So that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's amazing that animals that have been in bad situations can have a new life and, you know, have new owners and a new home. So yeah,
I was honored to be a part of that dog's journey. It was just fantastic. And, you know, that was just one. You know, there were others. But yeah, a lot of them, for some reason, they decide to love and trust again. And that's just fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, dogs.
I know.
I follow a lot of dog and cat accounts on Instagram. So if that tells you anything about me.
Right.
Yeah, they're awesome. Do you have any funny stories about working with animals that you could tell us? I'm kind of putting you on the spot, maybe.
So one time as I was diving at Ripley's in the tank, a male shark decided to chase a female shark. The female shark was swimming away from the male shark, and the female shark actually swam between my legs, which I didn't notice because I've got a mask on.
Sure.
Like this. The male decided to follow her and also went through my legs. Only I didn't know. I was closing my legs and actually closed his tail in between my legs. I look down and there's a shark tail going like this between my knees. And I'm like, oh my God, I just froze a shark.
What's going on? Yeah. Okay, I didn't realize that. I mean, I knew a scuba mask could obscure your vision in some way, but you think shark. But
well, it wasn't that big a shark. It was like a 4-foot shark.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, no.
Yeah, it was a little leopard shark, but yeah, it was a little frightening to look down and see the shark tail between my knees, just like flopping around.
Like what happened there? Yeah, no, oh my gosh. Okay.
That doesn't happen every day.
No, and kudos for you to getting into a tank with sharks. So whenever I see a trainer or a diver in with sharks, I mean, obviously it's safe, but you know, a little rise in anxiety, like. Ooh.
Oh yeah. So in North Carolina, before you were allowed to dive in the tank, you had to jump in front of a shark.
Oh.
This was a 12 to 14-foot sand tiger shark.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll probably put a picture up for reference.
Right.
Yeah.
My dive safety officer was a Marine.
Okay.
Or DSO for short. He went by the book. I mean, he went 100% by the book, right? So here's the thing with sharks. If you were to jump in the water, and I got this question all the time, especially at Ripley's, because they have the huge shark tank, 750,000 gallons. And I went in that tank more than once. That was fun. But everyone always asks, if I were to jump in that tank, would the sharks attack me? And I'm like, no. Well, wait. Depends on where you would land. If you were to jump behind a shark, it's going to hear this crazy noise behind it and not know what's going on, and it will probably turn around and defend itself, right? If you were to jump directly on top of a shark, of course, it's going to think it's being attacked and will defend itself. If you jump in front of the shark can see you and know that you're not a threat and will just swim around you. So I definitely feel like I put my life into my dive safety officer's hands. He told me when to jump. He said, I will tell you when to jump, and you jump. And I've got all my scuba gear on, and I'm about to jump in front of a shark. Seriously? Yeah. But he said, jump. I jumped. And let me tell you, I was never afraid in that tank again. There wasn't anything that was going to be more scary than that.
Right.
And since I was fine, I was never scared again.
Okay.
And having that self-confidence, knowing that I knew what to do, because we did all kinds of safety drills where he would and this was supposed to happen, but he would attack you and grab your mask off your face, and you had to get away and get your mask back on and get your regulator back in. But he wanted you to know how to handle it if someone else panicked and ripped your gear off. But after jumping in front of a shark and knowing that I can defend myself underwater and I'm fine, complete confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, because your mask being ripped off of your equipment can be very dangerous for you because you need to be able to breathe.
Yes.
So, yeah.
These tanks are not very deep, but still, if you're panicking,
right,
you're
expelling a lot of energy. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Definitely. So it kept us all, very, very safe. And having that early on in my career served me so well, because I wasn't afraid of the 750,000 gallon tank with those sharks. I'd already jumped in front of one. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
I handle myself. So I had complete confidence in that. It's a good feeling.
Yeah. Walk around with a strut after that. Like,
right. I jumped in front of a shark.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. So a running theme of this interview has been, different careers in the STEM fields. And I think sometimes kids, especially when they're teenagers, are kind of starting to be drilled into their head, like, you need to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. You need to go to college and study one thing and be that one thing. And I think that, you've shown just talking that you have a love of animals, you have a love of STEM, but you've done different careers. So can we kind of talk about that a little bit, about how you've used all these different skills to find these different jobs that all work together, but you've gotten to do a lot of different things with the skills you've learned.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the most fun things that I did was I actually worked for the environmental health and safety department of a major university. And I got to wear a lab coat and I got to work with chemicals. And it was awesome that I got to use my high school and college chemistry. And it was a blast. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so, I mean, that really didn't have anything to do with animals, but I definitely got to use my STEM field. But definitely as a kid, I was told, to choose something. What do you want to be when you grow up? And, you better know right now. I don't know. And it's okay to not know. And it's okay to be interested in many things. Like I was kind of interested in dinosaurs and I decided to take one of my zoology classes. I took on dinosaurs and it was fascinating. And I'm like, why didn't I study dinosaurs earlier? This is awesome. So you don't have to know right now. But there's a lot of skills that will help you no matter what field you're in. And I was told more than once that I shouldn't study psychology because it was a soft science. But it really did help me with my animal training. I mean, you have to understand those things in order to train. And it will also help you with, connecting with people, like people skills. It'll help you understand why somebody might react a certain way. And then you can say, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were busy. I'll come back later. It gives you all kinds of insight into why people react the way they do.
Right. And I've been fortunate to interview scientists who are also dancers, who are also artists, who have many other interests, but those other interests aid them in the work they do. Because a lot of scientists, you need to be creative because you're problem solving more often than not. So what does creativity do? But it helps you with that problem solving. So, and a lot of these people were told you can't be both. You have to choose. And these people decided that they were going to be both. Their interest or their love was so great that one of them teaches like science dancing. So she incorporates science into her dancing. And I was like, that's really neat that you have two different careers that you've joined together. Yeah, so that's really, but yeah, you and a lot of people, think like when you're a college freshman, like you stick with one major and you have to do it, but that, study what you want and, find something to make a career out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I was going to touch on this earlier, but a lot of the work of a scientist is networking as well. And it sounded like when you were in Hawaii, you were able to meet Australians and then go there, like we talked about. So networking is also working collaboratively with others is also really important as a scientist.
Definitely.
Yeah, because they might help you be able to solve the problem you're trying to figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you have any recommendations for our viewers who might want to learn more about zoology or working with animals that you could share with us?
So one thing that really helped me out was I actually called a couple of zoos. I talked to some zookeepers and kind of decided that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to be working with the public more than just, cleaning and feeding the animals. So, that was invaluable to me. Like, okay, maybe I don't necessarily just want a zoology degree. I want to be able to do something else. But yeah, definitely talking to people who are in the field now and asking them, what is a typical day like? Make sure it's something that you want to do. And then, of course, I would say, your local libraries. Of course, I don't know if they're open right now with COVID, but of course, there's most zoos actually will have other sources on their sites where if you're interested in, these topics, and those should be, pretty accredited. If a zoo is saying, here, look at this, that's got to be some pretty good information, because of course there's not so good information out there too sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, that's why you go directly to the source, right? And like I said, the whole dinosaur thing, like if there's something that kind of interests you, look into it, see where it leads you. It might lead you further down that path. It might tell you, not for me, back down another path.
Right. And Cincinnati's lucky. If you're in the Cincinnati area watching this, we have a wonderful zoo and aquarium here in the area. So we'll share those those sites as part of the event as well, if you're interested. And the fact that you called zookeepers to learn, that's something that we've stressed in interviews before too, is 9 times out of 10, if you cold call someone or email them asking about their job, they're going to want to tell you about their job.
Yeah.
You know, and when COVID is done, a lot more places might be able to do job shadowing or an internship of some sort. So for anyone who's interested, you know, always keep that in mind that, you know, a lot of people, a job shadowing can be a day, can be a week, but people will more times want to tell you about their job to help you out. And, you know, it's their job. They want to talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And my very last question for you. What advice would you give to young women and girls who might want to pursue a career in the STEM field?
I would say that's fantastic. Do it. I've had to learn this myself, that there's always going to be somebody that doesn't agree with you or doesn't think you can do it. You can't tell, but I'm rather short. So a lot of people have thought I'm much younger than I am, and I've had trouble with people taking me seriously. The thing is, you know, if someone says, oh, you can't do that, that's stupid, why do you want to do that? Their opinion doesn't matter. Do what you want, okay? And you don't have to prove to them that you're good enough or smart enough or tall enough or old enough or, you know, whatever it is. Do it for you. Don't pay any attention to the negative people out there that have no idea what they're talking about.
Thank you. Yes. That is something I think a lot of young people, especially early on in their careers, face.
Yeah.
Is being taken seriously. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. And thank you for everyone watching, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.